This is the Brook Scandinavian Forest Axe. It's, I don't know, a little more than 2 feet long. You can look at the specs online. I just use it to cut down this white fir. It's a dead white fir. I got a lot of this dead white fir back here. And if I leave it up too long, I just end up with nasty deadfalls. So I've kind of learned from bitter experience. It makes sense to actually cut it down and try to process it for firewood before it's completely rotten, because then it's just a hazard to everything. As far as I know, this stuff hasn't killed a deer or anything, but there's a lot of sign around here. Something was bedding down here last night. Anyways, really quickly, this is my Scandinavian Forest Axe. It's my newest axe, and I don't claim to be any kind of master axeman or anything, but I guess I started swinging an axe when I was about 12 years old, because I grew up in a home where we heated with firewood. So I took down this dead tree. Looks like there might still be, it's not super punky. I think it's still burnable. Sorry. I think it's still burnable. But I've been limbing it. I cut it down with that axe because I was curious how the axe would work. Usually I use a chainsaw. But you know, it's actually, you can see by that axe is pretty sharp. Now, to be honest, it's my fault that it's sharp, because I've been sharpening it, but it's the manufacturer's fault that it's got a nice profile. You can see at the top there, right there, I nicked it, honestly, from my own carelessness. I nicked it down at the bottom too. It's maybe not as visible because I've mainly worked that nick out. The first nick, I don't know what happened. I hit some wood through some frozen snow, and I don't know if the ice turned the edge, or if there was a pebble in it, or what. The second one was my own fault. I was just being careless. It wasn't deliberate, I was just being careless. But I've been honing it to try and get the nicks out, which is what the manufacturer's recommendation is. Their owner's manual doesn't talk about re-profiling the blade or re-edging the blade. It just says to sharpen it and get the nicks out. So I've been sharpening it, and then I thought, well, if I actually use it, then I'll have to sharpen it more, and it'll be faster to get those nicks out. I've also soaked this handle half a dozen or so times. I've soaked it, just completely soaked it in boiled linseed oil and left it there for hours, sometimes overnight. And it's working wonders. This haft is beautiful. This is not actually my go-to axe. It might become my go-to axe, but it's a little bit small for a go-to axe. Look at this. That's, knocking a limb off the tree with one swing from this thing. This axe works shockingly well, and I think, like I say, the manufacturer doesn't get credit for the edge, because I've been honing this a lot. But the manufacturer does get credit for the blade shape and the blade profile, both of which are just amazing. So although this is not yet my go-to axe, and like I say, it may become my go-to axe, I doubt it. I think it's a little bit small. It's probably my nicest axe. Since I said something about stuff bedding down in here, this is the path up to the house. Well, path. This is how I've been getting up to the house. Check that out. That's that looks to me like elk sign. And there were some pretty good sized tracks going up towards here. There we go, caught up towards the edge of the hill. And down here, and I don't know if you can see it. Here, I'm gonna walk down a little bit. Left my coat there. It's way too hot. Swinging an axe through a tree is hard work. Down right there, it's actually a tangle of branches, but there's a creek. I don't know if it quite shows up. There's a creek down there. So I normally ford the creek, not here, but kind of down there. There's a little path that runs through the creek. And I was gonna go ford the creek the other day, and there were huge elk tracks down there. And this was not, I think it's elk. This was like, that's elk. The shape wasn't quite right for moose, but they were huge. The elk are down here this time of year. January, February, the elk hang out down here, and occasionally a whole bunch of them will bed down on the other side of the creek over there. I think they come down on that side of the creek. There's a little path that runs down, and it runs up way up into the national forest. So normally in hunting season we don't see elk down here, but this time of year, January, February, March, I've seen as many as 60 elk walking. Actually not down here, but right up there, up past the house. I've seen about 60 elk walking around up there. So had them all swarming around the house one time. It was crazy. But anyways, we get a lot of deer down here, but we only get elk when it's January, February. One last kind of note. Here we are again. This is the stump. There's that tree going up there. It is hard not to end up with a widowmaker down here, because this hawthorn is so thick. And hawthorn at best is evil, but when you're cutting a tree down like this, it is a tool of the devil. It's got these the branches don't get very big, but they are numerous, and they have the tensile strength of, I don't know, they're like steel cables. So what I've been doing, and I'm here alone, so I'm not going to try to get this on camera. What I've been doing is sticking my shoulder under there and just kind of inching the stump forward. It's here now. It started there, so I've moved it, I don't know, 3.5 feet. So I've just been inching it forward just to get it out of that tangle. But I think what I'm going to do now is just go get a chainsaw. This is interesting, and now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking what that is just porcupine. Country people hate porcupines. And it's easy to think they hate porcupines because the porcupines wreak havoc on their dogs. But the reality is that porcupines tear up trees. They like to come through and girdle trees. I have about 30 fir saplings about 100 yards that way. And they're about waist high, some of them a little taller, some of them a little shorter. And I've been really pleased at them coming up because there's sort of a clearing that's a bare spot, and I've been hoping it would grow in. Well, I went down there one day and 13 of them were girdled. Porcupines are evil little things. So when I first, at first it sounds a little bit cruel that country folks will shoot a porcupine on sight. But when you see the havoc they do to your forest, you start to feel a little bit more sympathy. And I'll tell you what, the first time you got to take your dog in to get the quills pulled out, that's not pleasant. I've only had one dog get into a porcupine, but it was a nightmare. So that's why country folks hate porcupines. But I think this is porcupine scat. I'm gonna look it up and see, but that looks like porcupine scat to me. Here I am showing you pictures of poo. All right, so here we are at this little logging operation. You can see, let's see if I can get this in frame here. We were down here a couple days ago. This is the tree right here that I cut down with that Brook Scandinavian Forest Axe. I came down today with my chainsaw right there to clean it up. I brought my heavier axe today. Where it is? Right there it is. That's my Helco Hinterland, which is kind of my go-to axe right now. Short enough to be handy, heavy enough to go through stuff, sharp on both sides. It's a good axe. So this tree is white. Let's see if I can get it. This tree, there we go. This tree is white fir, and it burns hot and fast, but not long. Not the best firewood, but anything standing dead in the forest here I just take because if I don't cut it down, it's just gonna fall. Could hit a deer, could hit a person if it hits. You know, I said earlier, see, here's my, trying to give you a, sorry, I just dropped my glove. All right, now, in deer season, I was hanging out right, I don't even see it, that stump right there, kind of back in here, and it doesn't show up well on this little camera. But there's a hill about 50 yards that way. So we're in a little draw here. And one day I came out here during deer season. I was about 100 yards up the draw. Down the draw. And as I'm sitting in the draw, I'm looking at this hill right here. Right in front of us here. And I see the deer creeping up and down it, like whitetails going up and down. But there was so much of this, like, see this kind of hawthorn tangle crap? There was so much of that. I was positive a bullet wouldn't make it through. So I just watched. And I thought, you know, next time I'm going to come closer. So the next day I came out and I sat right here. 50, maybe, I don't think it's 100 yards. I think it's closer to 50, but somewhere between 50 and 100 yards from the hill. And of course nothing moved the rest of the day. But I had mentioned earlier, there's something big moving around down here. I don't know what it is. So down here in this draw, we have deer pretty much year-round. We have turkey pretty much except for like midsummer. We get turkey in the spring, fall, and winter, not summer. In the summer, they go a little bit further down. We have a lot of coyotes. And down about 100 or 200 yards that way, there's a full skeleton of a 3x3 buck laying in the creek bed. I don't know what killed it, but we do have cougars in here. Not that I've ever seen cougars. A cougar remains the one creature I've never seen in the wild, which kind of makes me nervous. I grew up in a cougar-infested part of Vancouver Island, and I know they've seen me, but I've never seen them. So we have a lot of black bears, but I haven't seen any in this, like down this far in the draw. And I don't, we don't own the whole draw, right? So in our section of the draw, I've never seen a black bear. We have wolves, and I'm told they're here, but I haven't seen them. So cougars, bears, and wolves, I haven't actually seen here. I'm informed we have. I've seen the coyotes, I've seen the porcupines, deer, elk. A couple of years ago, a bunch of elk came up here, and it was, I stopped counting at 60, so I don't know how many there were. And we have, I'm pretty sure there's moose that come through here. Never seen them. There's not that many moose in this area, but they are at the top of the draw and they're at the bottom of the draw at different times of the year, which tells me they're probably coming through the draw. Now, unfortunately, during elk season, they're not here. This is too, this spot in the draw is too warm for elk during elk season. So for elk season, I got to go somewhere else. But in deer season, I come right down here and look for deer. The fact that I'm consistent, well, I've got to be careful what I say. The fact that I'm so much more successful with elk than with deer might indicate I should stop coming down here for deer. Anyways, there's something big down here moving around. I heard it. It might be a dog, it might be a coyote. Probably not a turkey. You don't usually hear those. Might be a deer. I hear a lot of deer. Maybe 50 to 100 yards that way, there's fresh elk scat and fresh elk tracks. And I've seen them down in the last couple weeks. They've been below us down here. So they come through the draw, absolutely, the elk do. So we have elk down here right now. Again, I haven't seen any this season, but I've seen their prints and their scat. And at the top of the hill there's elk scat. So they came pretty close to the house. But the elk are never here when they're in season. I really want to see a moose someday. Everybody tells me the moose come walking through here. I haven't seen them. So I keep looking. I don't have a moose tag. I'm not trying to shoot one. I just want to see one. I like the moose. All right, that's enough. My battery's running out.